You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, huh?
Illegally selling water without a permit
on my property.
Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
Take a look at this exchange that happened in Maine between a white woman and a white man over the use of the N-word.
Hey, man, I heard your conversation in there, and you might want to have an outwardly racist conversation in a more private place.
Outwardly?
Yeah, I heard you say the N-word multiple times, and that's just not cool, dude.
You don't like that word?
No, because it's not appropriate. It's a slur.
Well, you call it a slur, but my conversation, which I'm hoping to have with you, is why would it be a slur okay for them to say, but not
well, there's
me,
a lot of people. No, there's a lot of people in the black community who don't like that word either.
And I appreciate that.
But a lot of black people died with that name being yelled at them, and a lot of people.
A lot of black people enjoy using it as words of endearment.
So I'm curious, what names have white people been called as they've been hauled up trees?
As they've been what?
Hauled up trees and lynched.
Oh, I have no idea.
Exactly.
I'm cutting somebody off.
Why do you need to use the N-word?
You're ignorant for a teacher.
Why do you need to use the N-word?
I'm going to explain it to you.
Why?
Shut up long enough.
Why do you need to use the N-word?
I tried talking to you. Sorry.
Why do you
ignorant.
need to use the
I'm
N-word?
sorry. I used to think that you were half.
Why do you need to use the
Now I know
N-word?
that there's no use for you.
Why do you need to use the N-word?
Because I can.
Because you can.
Because I can. Why are you filming me? And you can do that.
Why
too.
do you need to use the
Because I
N-word?
can.
Why do you need to use the
Because you're
N-word?
ignorant.
Why do you need to use the N-word?
Because I can.
There it is.
Robert, I'm going to start with you. Why? Why does this guy or this woman essentially have to justify or even explain to this white man why it's not okay for him to use the N-word?
Man, look, shout out to Tyrell or Jamal or whatever her black boyfriend from college's name was, because that woman is an ally. And like whatever he had her in that dorm room watching Malcolm X movies, listening to Jay Dilla and everything, she probably got a kente cloth at home, dashiki, got the adinkra symbol, all that stuff. So shout out to whoever made her an ally. But let's understand, this is the only way that you start rooting these people out, because when you as a black person says something to this white guy, they say, "Oh, you're playing the race card." It takes another white person to approach them in whiteness, and without all of the aggression and anger that goes with it, to approach them in whiteness. And then they can understand and have a civil conversation. So this is something for them to work out amongst themselves. I think that if you want to be a real ally, it's not enough just to turn your Instagram or your Facebook picture to a black square every time that a black person gets shot, but actually to do things such as this to work your way to start working through the community. And that's why you start weeding it out over the course of a couple generations. It's not going to happen in a day, in an hour, in a week, but over the course of a couple generations, we see these things reducing and eventually going away. A perfect example, if you want to look at the F word, as it relates to the LGBTQIAPK plus community, 20 or 30 years ago, it was in music, it was in movies, it was in comedy. Today, it is gone. If you look at the way that we talk about Jewish Americans in this country, there used to be anti-Semitic slurs and blazing saddles and all sorts of other parts of pop culture. Today, it is gone because they worked it out of the community, and we have to do the exact same thing for the N-word.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm usually cracking up at this segment, but this was a pretty serious segment and a teaching moment. I tell my colleagues at my law firm and my colleagues that don't look like me that given this racial reckoning, given this heightened racial consciousness, I don't want you to be anti-racist, right? Because no one's going to admit that they're a racist. I want you to be anti-racism. I want you to stand up and say this is wrong and weed it out and address it in whatever way you feel comfortable addressing it, so we can weed out systemic and generational racism, right? So nobody's born with a racist gene. No one believes that they're racist, and yet generational systemic racism continues to self-perpetuate in our society. But these moments, like that woman took up the mantle and as an ally said, why do you have to use that word? And in the end, what he told her was really because white privilege says I can use it, right? And he was unapologetic about it. You see, racism rears its ugly head in a despair and impact way. It can be the Proud Boys, but most of the time it's rooted in white privilege, right? And I'm not letting people that don't look like me off the hook, but it manifests itself a lot in these moments. And we need Black people, white people, brown people as allies to stand up and say enough is enough. Because families are teaching new races every day. Environment where people that don't look like me that they grow up in, and they're being taught racism and to use that word. And unless someone like a white ally doesn't stand up or stands up and says, no, that's wrong, then it's going to continue to be generational, and racism is going to rear its ugly head at all generations going forward. This is the moment that we have a chance to stop it. All those white people and brown people that were out there protesting George Floyd, you know, I applaud it because racism is not a Black issue. Let's be serious. It may affect us negatively 400 years from slavery to now, but it's not a Black issue. It's America's sin. And to move past and get to the promise of America, of freedom, justice, and equality, it's just not going to be up to me and Monique and Robert and you and Roland Martin. We're going to need everybody to say this is wrong. We don't need any silent partners anymore. And so now is the time. And so I applaud our white ally in that video, but I need millions of white allies to stand up, regardless of in 2043, we're going to be a country of color. I need everyone to stand up to not that word, but to racism.
And Scott, to your point, I was covering the George Floyd protests last year, and there were a lot of white people who came out to protest. And a lot of them that I spoke with, they were like, we didn't know racism was this big of a deal, or we didn't know that systemic racism within the police force was this much of an issue. And instead of just protesting, they came there to learn, to educate themselves and to educate those who look like them as well.
But you know what they also said? If you were out there, or if you were doing political commentary, or if you were listening and reading, what they were telling you, which was even more profound and a blessing or an ally, is that this is not my America. As young white Americans will say, this is not my America. I don't want my America to be this. I want the promise to be for everyone. I want it to be for everyone. And that's the beginning. It's not the end. We got to have those courageous conversations. We got to make sure that people are tolerant but accountable, right? And we got to listen and love and forgive and a path forward together, arm in arm. But that's where it starts, by that white woman standing up and saying no to use of that N-word. It's a great example.
Definitely. Monique, what are your thoughts?
Yes, she definitely showed allyship in that moment. One of the things that I post all the time on Instagram when things like this happen is get your folks, get your own folks. I check my folks. I might not do it publicly. But surely, if I disagree with something, Scott is on here. He can tell you there will be a conversation, and it will be good. It'll be fulsome, and that's what we have to do. Correction begins at home. But what I also want to observe is she was the most successful candidate for that conversation, not just her whiteness, but her womanhood, which makes for white womanhood, which is the holy grail in the United States of America. Because see, that man could have been challenged by pretty much anybody else and it go a completely different way. It could have escalated to physical violence, whether it was black man, black woman, white man, brown man, or woman. But here she was, saying to somebody it was obvious she was kind of familiar with, and he said that she was a teacher and she should have been smarter. I was listening to the conversation. So maybe they knew each other, but that's where the power is. When you stand up in your circle and you use the opportunity that you have when you have it, claim your own power and authority over situations and circumstances and people, and teach and correct. And I don't want to assume, like my brother Robert did, that she was under the influence of some prior Black relationship. And I don't want to assume that she had some good Black girlfriend. And I don't want to assume that it was, she was raised on the other side of the tracks with the rest of us. She may have just been a woman who took the time to read and learn and understand her environment. And maybe she got the spirit of living God on the inside of her. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. But whatever she's doing, we need more of that. One of the reasons Black folks get so exhausted is because we study trying to explain the same stuff over and over again to people who long since should understand it. Well, if they don't understand it, I'm tired. Let sister step up. She's doing a good job.
Amen. Go ahead, Scott.
All I was going to say, and I would like to make an official motion to take Candace Owens' invite to the barbecue and give it to this white woman because she's been more of an ally to us than some of these other Black folks who are in the media speaking down to us. So if she's invited to the barbecue, I'll make brisket.
I love it. All right. Any final thoughts, guys, before I let you go?
I have one quick final thought. It's incumbent upon us, too, as Black people. I sit around and smoke cigars and drink tequila with my friends, and if they use the F word in connection to gay people, if they make a slur against our Jewish brothers and sisters, it's up to us to stand up and say no to that. That's not allowed, or you're not going to use that around me, because it can be just as hurtful and just as harmful. Since one of my daughters is gay, I certainly don't allow that to go on at my home or in social settings, because in my mind, they're talking about one of mine, flesh and blood. So it's very personal to me. But I've got to be affirmative and assertive to them more than just once and say, don't use those terms around me, and you shouldn't use them generally. And they say, oh, Scott, we're just talking, right? It's just us here. No, it's no longer accepted for Black people, white people, brown people, gay people, Jewish people to traffic in those types of tropes and racially offensive language. We got to get away with it, because words and language matter, especially the ones we use, given what Black people have been through for 400 years. And so I'm committed to that corrective behavior. I am. And I do it quite a bit, and I'm doing less of it because my friends and family know it's not to be tolerated when I'm around.
Monique, any final thoughts?
Amens and amens.
All righty there.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.